So in today's notes, we're going to be talking about just complementary and supplementary angles from 3-5. So first we have here complementary angles. So complementary angles are when we have two angles. So two angles are complementary if and only if the sum, right, when we add them, their degree measure is 90 degrees. So that means we have to add those angles together and they'll equal 90. First example we have here is when you have two angles that are adjacent. So these are adjacent angles, right? They have a common vertex and they share a side. So then we have here, we're looking at angle 1 and angle 2. We are told that the angle ABC is a right angle. Since it's a right angle, I'm going to go ahead and put my little right angle box there. We know that's right. Therefore, they are complementary. Okay, so for example, if we went ahead and did the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2, we know it would equal 90 degrees. And now I'm not assuming that it's a right angle, right? I'm literally told right here that it's a right angle, so we're always going off what we are told. The next example, example 2. These are not adjacent. As you can see, they have separate vertices and they do not share a common side. But we can have examples like this where you have two angles that aren't adjacent. However, when you look at their degrees, let's say we have 70 degrees and 20 degrees, when you add them, so the measure of angle R is 70 degrees plus measure of angle S, which is 20 degrees, that will equal 90 degrees. So then we know that they are complementary angles. Again, they do not have to be touching, they have to just be able to add them, and we just have to be able to add them and have them equal 90. All right, so here's an example. This example, we are not given any pictures, but we don't necessarily need those pictures. We know that these two angles are complements, which means that the sum is 90 degrees. So we know that if we do the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B, it will equal 90. So let's go ahead. I'm going to continue with this format here. So measure of angle A plus 38 equals 90 degrees. I'm going to subtract 38. And when I go ahead and do that, we get the measure of angle A equals 52 degrees. So we have here 52 degrees. Notice how I wrote my answer. The next one we have here are supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are similar to how complementary angles work, except their sum is 180 degrees. Okay, so we have here two examples similar to above. So we're going to have here the postulate, there's a postulate, a rule, right, something we know is true, that actually states if two angles are a linear pair, then they are supplementary. So that means we can say if you have a linear pair, that implies supplementary. All right, and then we know supplementary angles, as we've just learned. Let me just put a little angle there. Angles implies 180 degrees. Okay, so here, this is an example, the first one, example 1. This is a linear pair, right? And they are supplementary. So we know that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 will equal 180 degrees. The next example is another one where, let's say that they are not connected, right? They have two different vertices. So they're not touching, they're not adjacent, they're not a linear pair in this sense. But we know that if we knew the degrees of them, so let's say this is 30 degrees and this is 150 degrees, we know 30 plus 150 equals 180. So we can say that they are supplementary angles. The next example here is another one similar to the one we just did. So this is saying the angle RST and TSP are supplementary angles. If we know one of the angles, RST is 137, what is TS, and the measure of angle TSP? Now, what I'm going to do first is actually draw this because this is something that is going to be pretty tricky for us, is drawing our pictures. So we know that they're supplementary. I know that they are going to be adjacent linear pair angles because we have an R, actually not the R, we have an S, the vertex is an S, so they share the vertex, and they also share another point, which means their vertex is going to be the same, so we can draw them on the same line. Now, they also have the T in common, so I'm going to put the T. They just don't have the R and the P in common. So RST is 137 degrees, and we don't know what this angle is. So we know if we do the measure of angle TSP plus 137 equals 180, subtract 137. When we go ahead and subtract that, 180 minus 137, we will get 43 degrees. So the measure of angle TSP is 43 degrees. All right, so a couple example problems that I'm going to go through with you guys here. So it says using the diagram for numbers 1 through 4, or 3 through 4. And actually, it's all of these here. So we'll just go with 3 through 5. Okay, so taking a look here, name a pair of adjacent supplementary angles. Adjacent means they have to have the same vertex and side that they share, and the supplementary is 180 degrees. So taking a look here, we know that this here, AE, line AE, is a straight line, right? It's not on an angle. We know it's going directly across. We know that we just need a pair of adjacent angles. So I'm actually just going to go like this, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to look at angle AGD. So we know the measure of angle AGD, and I'm going to look at the measure of angle DGE. Right, so DGE, that one's pretty simple because that's 54 degrees, right? But then AGD is 36 plus 60 plus 30 degrees. So when we have those, we know that they will equal 126 degrees. So let's go ahead and check. Is 126 plus 54, is that equal to 180 degrees? Put it in your calculators. Yes, it is. So we know that we can say that the measure of angle ADG and the measure of angle DGE are, the sum of them is 180, so these two are adjacent. So I'll just put here angle AGD and angle DGE. Okay, now notice I wrote, it's asking for adjacent angles, so since they're adjacent, they're going to have the same vertex, and they're also going to share another letter because they have a common side. The next one is asking for non-adjacent complementary. So non-adjacent complementary we know is 90 degrees. This means they're not going to be touching each other. So go ahead, take a second to see if there are two angles, right? Two angles that we can have here that are going to be equal to 90 degrees, and they are not adjacent to each other. Okay, so I'm hoping that we are looking here and notice that we have this angle BGA is 36 degrees. So the measure of angle BGA equals 36 degrees. And then we also have here DGE is 54 degrees. So the measure of angle DGE. Now notice they only share the vertex, and that's okay. It just has to be non-adjacent, and this is 54 degrees. So 36 plus 54, does that equal 90 degrees? Well, yes, and it does. So we know angle BGA and angle DGE are non-adjacent complementary angles. The next one says, find the measure of an angle that is supplementary to DGE. So I'm going to go ahead and erase the picture here. So it's saying DGE. So supplementary. It does not have to be adjacent. It does not have, or it could be adjacent or it could not be adjacent. It does not matter. It's not asking for it to be. So taking a look here, we know that the measure of angle DGE DGE, I keep wanting to put DEG, DGE is equal to 54 degrees. Okay, so we have that one is equal to 54 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and look to find another angle that I can go ahead and use. So I only see here the one we already did, right? So this guy here. So I'm actually going to use this one again, even though we used it in number 3, because we know the measure of angle AGD is equal to 36 plus 60 plus 30, which will be equal to 126. So when we add these two angles together, they would be supplementary. So I'm going to have here angle DGE and angle AGD. Now, I do want to reference that for this first one here, okay, so this first one here, and I don't even know what that was. So the first one here, we totally could have said that angle AGF and angle EGF are also supplementary angles. Okay, so they're adjacent supplementary angles. As you see here, we totally could have done that one as well. All right, the last few examples we have. So it says angle C and angle D are supplementary. The measure of angle C equals 12x, and the measure of angle D equals this. Find x. So we see here that they have two different vertices just because it says angle C, angle D. So we have here 12. I'm actually going to draw it. So this is angle C is 12x, and angle D is 4 times x plus 5. So then I know that they are supplementary, which means we can do the measure of angle C plus the measure of angle D equals 180. So we have 12x plus 4 times x plus 5 equals 180. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 4. So we have 12x plus 4x plus 20 equals 180. I'm going to combine these two here. So that's 16x plus 20 equals 180. 16x equals, I'm going to subtract 20 over. So that's 160. So when I go ahead and do 160 divided by 16, we will get x equals 10. Okay, so that was what we wanted to find. Number 7 says the measure of angle 3 is 115. Oh, we lost a little degree symbol there. And then we know that angle 3 and angle 4 form a linear pair. Find the measure of angle 4. Okay, so if they're a linear pair, I know I can totally go ahead and draw this lovely picture here. Angle 3 and angle 4. We know angle 3 is 115 degrees. We don't know what angle 4 is, but if we do 115 degrees plus the measure of angle 4, it will equal 180 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 115, subtract that over, 180 minus 115. We will get the measure of angle 4 equal to 65 degrees. All right, and there you have it.